Thanks for joining me on this segment. Established in 2002, the Ease of Doing Business ranking has become a benchmark against which reforms are measured and the clearest indicator yet of a country that is open for business. Nigeria is ranked 145th among 190 countries or economies in the Ease of Doing Business. According to the latest World Bank annual rating, the rank of Nigeria improved to 145 in 2017 from 169 in 2016. Ease of Doing Business in Nigeria averaged 145 from 2008 and until 2017, reaching an all-time high of 170 in 2014 and a record low of 120 in 2008. 24 places. That will be the focus on this segment on Insight today, and I have two analysts here. I have an investment analyst and a financial analyst, Niyi Akinsiju. Thanks for joining me on Insight.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
I also have a journalist and public affairs analyst, Chukwudi Enekwechi. Thanks for joining me on Insight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, beautiful. A lot of people have heard this Ease of Doing Business, and it looks to some very technical, it looks to some very mechanical. What really is the implication of all this?
It simply defines the processes of doing business in Nigeria. When you move in that rank, it shows that the government, as it were as regulators, had reduced the bureaucracy, the red tape around doing business. For businesses and investors, this is good news. It shows that when you come into Nigeria, you can, and you have different indices, you know. I think about 16 in all. You have ease of registering your business. Now in Nigeria, some months or some years ago, it may take you 3-4 months to register a business. Now you can register a business under 48 hours, online, real time. So for the World Bank, that is a plus for Nigeria. If you need to register, to apply for license by the presidential order. Don't forget that at the point in time, there was a presidential order by executive order outlining how people should relate with ministry MDAs that are responsible for issuing license. That if you apply for a license in Nigeria to the Ministry of Mine, for instance, if after 30 days you don't get a response, you assume that your license had been issued. Now that put pressure on that MDA to immediately process, you know. So now it means that within a very short time you can access license to do whatever you want to do in Nigeria. So generally it is about creating an enabling environment for investments and businesses to thrive. Moving away from the tension, you know, the struggle of getting business registered, of getting your licenses, of assessing papers, documentation for your land, you know, and so many others. So, and this is principally what foreign investors look at when they want to come into a country. What's the ease of doing business ranking? Now, what we have now was actually an outcome of a deliberate effort by government, you know, to target this ranking. When the Presidential Business Enabling Council was set up in 2016, the idea was to achieve a 20% jump in ranking, you know. But as it were, they've even overshot that target. The target was 20 steps. Now it's actually 25 steps, you know. So it means that to do business now is easier by more than 25%, if you want to put it that way, that it used to be in 2016, you know, or historically. So for me, if I want to register business now, all I need to do is just go online. Within 48 hours, I get my business registered. That's a quantum leap, you know. If I want to secure a license, it's easy for me. If I want to process land, you know, if by movement of my goods from one point to the other is also the process is also reduced. These are all the things plus others that the World Bank take into consideration in ranking across peers. don't forget about you have about 190 countries involved. So you now compare peers. So where if we are 145, it means we have a better platform of doing business in Nigeria than many other countries.
Let me take the view from Chukwudi before the other angles to it that I need to trump up. So what's your view about it?
Well, I see the wisdom of the federal government in trying to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. The ease of doing business ranking, which Nigeria has just benefited from, is a direct result of the effort of the federal government to ensure that the diversification program of the administration succeeds. You have this, the diversification program can only succeed when you make it possible for foreign investors and their counterparts in Nigeria to interface. And you can only achieve that when you create a necessary and the enabling environment for businesses to thrive. For instance, if you want to get a visa to come to Nigeria, you don't have to suffer over it. And presently, it is very easy to get a visa, Nigerian visa, when you arrive here. And that is one aspect of ease of doing business. You can have a one-stop platform on which a foreign investor will just come and then be able to access all the licenses he may need to establish in Nigeria. So these are areas that government deliberately decided to provide an enabling environment for foreigners to come into Nigeria and invest. The direct corollary of that is that these people will be able to bring in foreign exchange, and this foreign exchange is what will help to stimulate the economy of the country. So I think that it is a deliberate policy of the federal government, this present administration, to make business easy for people. So long as there is no corruption involved, you will be able to enter Nigeria, transact your business without let or hindrance. And it's commendable. It's a commendable effort.
Okay. Now, I'm happy you used the word peered, and he used the word foreign exchange earner. But some person said maybe the rebasement would have been maybe 50 places, not 24 places higher, if certain things are even done more. The parameters are this. If you say ease of doing business, comparatively in some climes, the issues of expatriate waivers are no more available. As you come into the country, there's nothing like waiver. You're part of the country. But these expatriate waivers, people still come in and still take away, like somebody will say, came in with briefcase and you leave with portmanteau. That is capital flight. How do you look at that?
I think that's looking at another angle.
Some persons say it would have been a lot better if this place, these parameters were attended to.
No, well, you see, the ease of doing business ranking has to do with both foreign investors and
ease of doing
domestic.
Business is supposed to be tied to growth.
Yeah,
but if it's not tied to growth, it becomes a problem.
No, you tie it to growth as a consequence, of the application. What we are talking about now is the outcome of what you call the National Action Plan 1.0. You also now have in place the National Action Plan 2.0, because it's a wide universe. So government anywhere that wants to attend to ease of doing business would be looking at it segment by segment. One segment had been taken care of. Now, I think from September, there is also this because the National Action Plan would mean that government and other identified stakeholders will come together and start reviewing. Do
you mean September this year, September next year?
September this year.
This year, okay.
It's already, it has been inaugurated. Okay. It's ongoing. So in the next 20 or 30 days from now, we should have an action, on the second segment of this ease of doing business index. So the idea of people coming in with their portfolio and all that has to do with corruption and processes. And I think there's a process on ground now that you just don't issue contracts. You just don't award contracts without going through the tender board, without going through the Bureau of Public Procurement and all that, you know. Even in terms of expectorate quota, it's easier now to get access to expectorate quota licensing, you know, than before. So when you compare now and before, it tells you that if you are coming into Nigeria and you need to bring in expatriates, you will not need to take 3 months. You will not need to also bribe anybody. On the face value of your request, if it is rational and logical, you get issued within 24 hours.
Well, why I raised the issue of expatriate quota, the argument is we have, mostly in the construction industry, for instance, people who are supposed to be just masons, on grounds of expatriate quota, while at the construction site, are supervising over Nigerian engineers. But if you waive off expatriate quota, they compete for jobs. But here, because of the expatriate quota, you make somebody who's supposed to be a lowly placed person back home in his country coming to be a superior. For instance, an engineer, Korean registered on a construction site, you find him taking instructions from somebody who's be a mason back in his country. Yeah. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that has not. We are now looking at professionalism. It's not about.
It's tied to the growth.
No, you see, if we are talking about ease of doing business, the first thing is the process. Okay, when you remove the process, you will now go to the substance of hierarchy. You know, now hierarchy again is subjective. Okay. It depends on how you are looking at it. But the important thing is the immigration officer that is going to approve your expatriate to come in is supposed to understand the ecosystem, you know, the professional ecosystem, to say that, okay, this person, what exactly will be the grade of his activities or of his practice in Nigeria. And it is supposed to be on that the license to operate in Nigeria would have been issued. So these other ones, who Nigerians now need to start monitoring, you know, the relationship between expatriates and internal or domestic professionals, you know, on site. I know that by now we have engineers that are very professional and they are very exposed, you know. But of course, you also know that when you invite foreign investors, you are also parceling parts of your employment universe, you know, to the foreign investor. It's expected, okay. You know. It is because that person is bringing you money, okay, and is also bringing you expertise. There are still certain projects we cannot 100% conduct in Nigeria. We need foreign exposure, foreign expertise. So when these people come, of course, human nature, there may be some attempt to manipulate. Okay. And in doing that, it is for Nigerians now, our immigration officers, for instance, Nigerians on site, to know how to proactively engage these persons, you know, and to be able to now have a platform. In the digital world, you don't need to physically go and present this case to people concerned.
Let me get to Chukwudi now. I'll come back to you. Sustainability remains a major concern. We have moved on 24 places, 145th out of 190 economies. If we don't sustain this feat, maybe leap even further, leapfrog it better, well, how will it sound? Maybe by next year we hear that Nigeria has hit and returned back to 165th sustainability here.
I don't foresee that. I don't foresee it because you have an administration that is relentless in ensuring that things are done according to the law. You have an administration that is relentless in ensuring that there is due process and observance of rule of law in the way we conduct businesses. And once due process is being followed, I guess we will, rather than descend, ascend further in the ranking of people of the countries that is easy to conduct business. Nigeria, as of today, is on an upward swing in terms of delivering democracy dividends to the people. And one way to achieve that is to ensure that your economy is working. And the economy cannot work. I'm being logical here. The economy cannot work if you don't bring in foreign investors. They will come with their capital, and this capital will be invested in Nigeria and will be able to stimulate the economy.
But you don't just bring the foreign investors and keep your hands full. You have to come up with safeguards to checkmate them. Because you bring in foreign investors and you don't checkmate them, it amounts to, I use the word, some people will say, an investor comes in from maybe Europe with a portfolio, and by the time he's leaving, he's going with a portmanteau. He came in lean, goes back fat.
Oh yes.
So if in as much as you're bringing in foreign investors, if you don't checkmate them,
I agree with you, but the issue is that if you say that of the past, no problem.
Okay.
I will agree. But we are saying that as it is today, the template is different. The template for conducting business has substantially changed in a way that people now know that corruption is not acceptable in the system. Even the foreigners themselves know that the issue of corruption is being taken seriously here now. So when they come, they are very careful. And then there are institutions responsible for checkmating what you have just mentioned. These institutions are there. They have to carry out their duties, and they are doing that. There are professional bodies to ensure that companies coming into Nigeria adhere to the laid down rules and regulations for doing business in Nigeria. So I think that going forward, I'm not pessimistic. I'm rather optimistic that the country will continue to make progress in terms of providing an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, both for local investors and foreign investors.
Okay. Now, it is agreed that there is a latent posture that corruption is not tolerable in Nigeria anymore. And in as much as government is working hard to make it a 0% compliance, we still have pockets of it within the public governance process, within the public sector, the private sector, though not full-blown as it used to be. Now, if the mileage covered is not sustained, it's not covered up, it may affect this, right?
Yeah.
So, moving forward, from your own expertise knowledge, what could be done so that we cover up and move on better?
Let me quickly correct pocket. It's not pocket.
Okay.
Still huge.
Huge, okay. It means I was being prudent, right?
No, because it's a legacy culture. Corruption in Nigeria is a legacy culture inherited by this government, and that is why this government, I think it's saying it's fighting it and will fight it. I mean, the president said if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. It at a point in time, it became the dominant culture of doing business in the public sector.
Okay.
And that is why for some of us, the ranking of the ease of doing business, drove a more inspiring outlook for us. Because when we were low in that ranking, it is actually a direct consequence of corruption. Because it is when processes are fizzy, are convoluted, that officers in the public sector make gains, and the more confusing, more compounded a process is, the more gains the public official hand. So for me, as we move up, it tells you there's a direct inverse relationship between corruption and ease of doing business. So if we are moving up on the ease of doing ranking, ease of doing business ranking, it means that corruption is also falling. And we should not delude ourselves that it is no longer there. It's not about pockets. Yeah. It's still there. It's only that, one, it cannot be conducted with impunity as it used to be. It is no longer the character of government at the highest level to encourage corruption. So I think the fight against corruption is also giving us this result, this outcome, to the deliberate effort by government, to engage the process, the environment, to ease the red tape, that's the word. It is the reducing the threshold of red tapeism. That's the whole thing about ease of doing business. And like I said before, what we have now is as a result of the National Action Plan on the Ease of Doing Business in Nigeria 1.0. That's part 1. That's what has led to this 24 steps jump. Now the government is already sitting on the 2.0 National Action Plan on Ease of Doing Business 2.0. So by the time they make another set of executive orders, it does mean that we are likely to even jump 30 steps, hopefully,
or more.
Don't forget that before, if Nigeria foreign investors complained that to get into Nigeria is as difficult as going to Afghanistan, because you have to pay so much for your visa, you have to go through so many processes, and it took like 3 months, even for a genuine investor. But now you can get the flight from wherever in the world and arrive Abuja airport and get your visa, as long as you have proof of what you are coming to do. And like you observe,
genuine proof.
Genuine proof, yes, genuine proof. You see, we cannot want something and then also be complaining with the other hand. We must learn to activate all our stakeholders to engage the process. He made a right observation. We have professional bodies. Corin is professional. If you have problems with foreign investors that are bringing in expatriates, and the relationship in terms of professional relationship is not in alignment,
I call it win-lose.
Yes.
Or not compatible.
Exactly. Corin could raise issues, and take that on. Either we like it or not, we will still be dependent on foreign investment for a long time. We need, just for our transport infrastructure, we still need about $450 billion just for transport. We are not talking of electricity, we are not talking of health, we are not talking of education. And to have some people that even come and say, look, on the average we need about $850 billion on the average to move up to nominal level of existence. Where would we get that? Our national budget is not up to $26 billion national annual.
Okay.
So for a long time we will be needing foreign investor, and we need to encourage the very foreign investor with the ease of doing business in Nigeria.
Okay. Power and the tax governance system is key here. If power is not gotten right and the taxing process looks a bit cumbersome, multiple taxation, could it be a problem?
Power?
Yeah.
When you talk about power, electricity?
Yes.
Okay,
because even at the passport office, for instance, at the visa point, for instance, the process is on and public power supply goes off. It's a hindrance. That's where I'm coming from.
Definitely, it's a hindrance. That when you don't have power, all over the world, everybody understands that power is key to the industrialization and even the progress of a nation. In the case of Nigeria, yes, we have challenges in the area of power, but the good news is that we are making steady progress. We are not declining. We are making steady progress. I understand that presently we have about 7,000 megawatts. And that is cheering news. If you recall that...
But the discourse say you don't have the capacity to even buy to distribute.
Oh, yes. But again, I am aware that government is in the process of liberalizing the power sector in a way that access to power will be as simple as ABC. And that is what is needed for power to get to all nooks and crannies of the country. So the good news is that there is steady progress being made in the area of power. You can agree with me that we are not going backwards in terms of power and energy. We are not going backward. We are moving forward. And so it's something to be grateful to God for. It's something to even appreciate President Muhammadu Buhari for.
if it is not properly defined, because we still have cases of mostly at the state level, maybe at the national level it's been properly defined. At the state level, at the local government level, you have what we call multiple taxation.
Okay.
On a good day, an SME, for instance, will find an avalanche of close to 4 different sub-teams coming to ask for tax. Could it be a problem?
Well, I think it can be a problem, really. I agree with you, it can be a problem, but it's not an insurmountable problem.
Okay.
It's a problem that can actually be addressed if they are identified in particular places. But I know that government on its own, the federal government particularly, has given a lot of incentives for businesses to thrive, especially investors who are willing to step their foot on the soil of Nigeria and invest.
Okay.
I know there are a lot of incentives, and it is expected that those some investors will latch on to this very rare opportunity. As we speak, this time is the most conducive atmosphere for people to make investment in Nigeria. So I think government is doing the right thing. The President Muhammad Buhari administration is determined and focused at ensuring that doing business in Nigeria is no longer a Herculean task. Is no longer something that you lose sleep over. It's no longer something that when you remember that you're going to Nigeria, you begin to lament. Now it is just like a one-stop approach to doing business in Nigeria.
Okay, when there's an innovation anywhere, we talked about ease of doing business, investors would like to come to Nigeria. But the investors coming to Nigeria are not just coming to end up at the city center or at the federal capital territory. Some are looking to go into the states, some are looking to go into the local government level. And if at this level they are not in sync with what the federal is doing, will it work?
I think that's first.
Because it looks to me that only a few states of the 36 states of the federation, including the FCT, have keyed properly into this platform.
Yeah, when you look at it, first as an investment analyst, my business is about following government policy. Because in a developing country like Nigeria, investment decisions, are determined 70% by government policies. So you must, as a matter of fact, follow government policies. And to that extent, for instance, let me quickly address the electricity thing. Going forward,
because there's an issue I want to switch to.
I can see government efforts, in upgrading capacity there. We've had a long laid back position on upgrading our transmitting capacity. I think we had an upgrade in 1965, and then in the 80s we had the Osogbo transmission and Osogbo switch line. That's the recent, and it couldn't take more than 6,000 megawatts. But I just learned now that 500 million naira had been committed to upgrading our transmission capacity. About 150 million naira or so had also been given to the discos to acquire meters. Now when you see all these activities, I as an investor will want to position myself in that environment. Okay, it tells me that over time, in the next so many months, there will be increase, in capacity in that sector. Okay. It's ongoing. I'm happy with it. Now, talking about government
entire tiers getting involved.
Yes, getting involved. I think also from my reading of what government has been doing, that there is a bit of collaboration. Don't forget there is the Joint Action Tax Board. Now, it involves the FIRS at the federal government level and the state internal revenue agencies. They all collaborate to determine what policies and what measure to put in place. In fact, there is an active collaboration at that level now. And some of them at the state level are now also telling the local government, for instance, don't get on highways. Don't come and put roadblocks on highways. You have no business on that. I think eventually we'll have a unified tax outlook. It's one of the concerns, for instance, of the National Action Plan on Ease of Doing Business 2.0. Okay. So in the next few weeks, when we have the outcome of that, we will have a definite position on unified tax, because it is a major headache. And of course, every investor will be concerned about that, because like you observed, investors are coming in not just to do business with the federal government, they want to do business with the state. Some even want to go to the local government. So once we have a unified outlook on tax, it's good for business. So even in the Presidential Business Enabling Council, you have states, state representative as part of that council. So it is not just federal government taking position on that.
Okay. Now, just few days after this ranking, the National Executive Committee of the All Progressives Congress passed a vote of confidence on the President Muhammadu Buhari. What would have informed this?
Well, what has informed it is that these are leaders from across the country who have actually did an assessment of the activities of the administration and come to the conclusion that the government was working for the interests of the country, majority of Nigerians. That is essentially what must have informed it. First of all, this government was able to give us security.
When you say majority of Nigeria, are you saying they're segregational?
No, what you say,
it's supposed to be a government for
no,
all
what
Nigerians.
I'm saying, when I say majority,
yes,
if a government has pleased 80%, it can't please everybody at the same time.
I get your point now.
So what I'm trying to say is that the vote of confidence they passed on President Muhammad Buhari is a direct consequence of his seamless approach to governance. This is a government that is focused on working for the people. This is a government that is not interested in what they will acquire for themselves. And once you're able to differentiate between your own needs, your what you want and what the people want, then the coast is clear for your administration to deliver, mostly in the interest of the people. Okay. So I want to tell you that the vote of confidence was desirable, it was expected, and it was welcome by most Nigerians. Even it is, I can tell you, is a microcosm of the general feelings of Nigerians regarding the administration. Nigerians are able to decipher, to understand, to see that this government is working in their own interest, not in the interest of certain individuals. Okay. And once this is established, you can see that it will be easy for us to have essential amenities of life. For instance, roads, water, electricity, good schools, hospitals. But when people were
zero tolerance to corruption.
In fact, that is the cardinal objective of the administration. And we're happy about it. This government is liberating us from the problem of corruption. Because, come to think of it, why would an individual take 10 billion naira for himself? Whereas the roads in my place, like Southeast, are not developed, are not rehabilitated. What, does it make sense? Does it make sense that individuals would just acquire 100 billion? Enugu Onitsha road is there. The Aba road is there. The Enugu Port Harcourt is there. So many things are left undone just because some people are greedy and we are busy acquiring wealth for their generations yet unborn. So I think we must support this administration to continue. Even if there is possibility to amend the constitution, let them go for 8 more years so that Nigerians can heave a sigh of relief from the effects negative adverse effects of corruption.
Okay.
Corruption has done a very big harm to the psyche of Nigerians, and that is the reason why most of our infrastructures are neglected. Okay. So you must join me to commend President Muhammadu Buhari for the good work he's doing, because now you see that most of these projects have been included in the budget, and if he has more years, 4 more years, he will be able to complete most of the projects, the railways, the road projects, the electricity projects, and Nigeria will change for good for everybody.
Okay. Let me take the opinion of Niyi.
Yes, I
coming just a few days after this is happening.
it's commendable. It's in the corporate world, what President Buhari is doing has equivalence in what you call turnaround experts. So if I want to describe President Buhari now, I will describe him first as a turnaround expert, because he's taking Nigeria, away from the legacy rots, away from the legacy stagnation that we used to experience and witness. And it's clear. I, as a young man in the 80s, have been talking at symposiums and lectures and insisting there was a need for diversification. And every government since then had been talking of diversification, but none had given expression in terms of physical, material, on-ground situation to what diversification should be. For the first time in a long period, don't forget that Nigeria officially became a consuming and import consumption economy in the 1980s, when we established the Nigeria National Supply Company. The responsibility of that company, owned by the federal government, was to import what you call essential items, milk, sugar, rice, to distribute to Nigerians. That tells you historically where we've been getting it wrong. And that culture had grown into such monstrosity, till 2015, when this government came in. So it is now, this government is now saying, no, rather than importing rice as an official policy of state, we should actually grow our rice domestically. And now we are seeing the benefit, we are seeing the impact. It was announced that 2 rice milling, huge rice milling companies in Thailand packed up because there was no patronage from Nigeria. And you can go on and on like that. So when you talk of diversification, this government is at the driver's seat, and nothing is good for Nigeria as much as that. The mining sector is coming up, even in the petroleum industry. Now we are witnessing huge expansion in the petrochemical side, of the oil industry, which we did not even give pretentious attention to in the last so many years. But now Idorama is expanding, Novara is expanding, Dangote is expanding. Now we are even growing our capacity for urea and NPK. That's raw materials for fertilizers and all that. These same fertilizers that we were importing, and some people were making huge gains out of it, out of corruption. Now, if you are domesticating the economy, it means you are empowering the economy. But let us add this. It's a process. It is ongoing. It's still short. We ran into this storm after we've evolved wrongly in the last 30-something years. Now, if we are to correct, I tell people, if you are to correct, you cannot expect correction in 4 years.
Okay. Thank you so much,
have to give time.
I think we can go on and on. Well, we've been speaking to the economy generally, and also the vote of confidence passed by the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress. We hope and believe that, I like using the word, it is work in progress. Maybe by next year we will hear that Nigeria has been ranked 50 places, and maybe we would have gone a leap further. Thanks so much for having a talk with me. I've had a talk with Niyi Akinseju, financial and investment analyst, and also Chukwudi Enekwechi,